All right, everybody, you have just tuned in to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And it might be the offseason, but we are still rolling on here. And the Steelers are now currently in the midst of phase 3 of organized team activities, or OTAs. And every day there's little nuggets coming out about what's going on, different interviews with different players. And, a lot of these are pretty typical type things. But, then every once in a while you get some interesting nuggets. And that's kind of what happened so far this week. The guys have just been in Tuesday, Wednesday, and today. And so there have been a few interesting things to discuss. So we will definitely get to that. And joining me tonight are C. Nick, coming to us live and uncensored from Las Vegas. Chris, how are things going for you?
Oh, pretty good. Today is about 95, so it's going to start the hot streak here. Yeah, it's supposed to be over 90 for the rest of the year now, I think. That's great.
Yeah, I heard that it gets a little warm out there. So,
just a tad bit.
Yeah, it's a good thing you got all those casino pools and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And just arriving home and shoving food in his face is Mr. Ben Anderson. Ben, I'm guessing not quite 90 out there in your neck of the woods.
No, it's 80. Nice and sunny. Beautiful day.
Oh, well, not bad at all. Yeah.
It's only 90, Chris?
Today was 95, between 90 and 95, up and down.
Oh, that's not bad. Not for the desert.
Oh, yeah. Like they say, it's a dry heat. You don't even feel it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just talking out my rear end. Anyway, gentlemen, a few different things to discuss today. And I'm kind of excited to discuss these things because a couple of them aren't usually things we spend a ton of time on. And one of those will be a guy that's been playing both fullback and linebacker in practice so far. And but we'll start with the kicker, Chris Boswell, who made his first comments Tuesday since last season. He of course had a really difficult year with consistency and accuracy, and then towards the end revealed he had an injury and was put on IR at the end there for week 17. And now we have a situation that Jerry Dulac of Post-Gazette revealed that the Steelers basically said to him this spring, look, we want to hold your roster bonus, which is $2 million, and we want to hold it until after the Carolina preseason game, which is their finale this summer, and we'll make a decision at that time. And now he did not have to accept that. He could have said, screw you, I want my money. And they told him, well, you'll be cut. And so he has decided to come into OTAs and then into training camp and, earn his stripes, so to speak. Ben, I'll start with you because I want to get to the kind of the financial side of this. Is this uncommon for a team to do this with a guy? Because I haven't heard of it too often.
It's uncommon for the Steelers to do it. And it's because they know that they're watched. I mean, they're watched more closely by agents and players than most teams are because they don't offer huge guarantees. So what they do is they say, hey, we're going to give your player this much money in the second year. And, it's pretty much a guarantee he's going to get it. So, I mean, you could basically count on it, but they don't really guarantee it. So if they renege on that kind of a roster bonus, it reflects negatively on them. And they're aware of that. By the same token, in this instance, I think what they basically said was, look, Chris, when we signed you this contract, you were one of the best kickers in the league. Last year, you were one of the worst, if not the worst. You cost us a few wins.
Yep.
We ended up out of the playoffs because of it. That and some other things that happened. It wasn't all your fault, obviously. We'd like to bring you back. We think you can capture that form you had before, but we're going to play a little bit cautiously. Rather than replacing you now, what we'd like to do is push out your roster bonus until just prior to the first game of the season. How do you feel about that? And then basically, it was a take it or leave it kind of a deal. It's either do this or we're going to cut you. And I think he looked at it from the standpoint that he was going to have to try out for another team if he was cut. It wasn't going to be a deal where he could just catch on with someone else and make $4 million this year. And so he decided to stay on and agree to this alteration of his contract.
I think you put it right. It's something that we don't see the Steelers do too often, and you're right. They're watched very closely by players and agents because they're pretty typical in the way they do things. But Chris, what do you have to see from Boswell? And I the obvious when I ask that is, well, he's got to make field goals. But I mean, what is the line for you? If you're, Mike Tomlin, if you're, looking at this guy, I mean, what's the line for you to say, okay, I think he's fine, he's good again, or he's just lost it and I can't rely on him? I mean, where is that line? What do you look for?
It's what happens after a miss. Does he go on a downward slope, or does he bounce back? I mean, I think we can all agree it's in his head right now, and we have to know if his head is right. Put him at the 50-yard line, 55-yard line, try and force him to miss, and then have him kick again. Is he going to be mopey? Is he going to be this? Is he going to be that? Or is he going to come back and say, no, put it back on the tee, or snap the ball again, and let me kick this again. That's what you want to see from a kicker, especially with Chris Boswell's situation being in his head. Consistency and coming back from a missed field goal, even a missed extra point. I mean, the guy missed extra points last year. That is just uncalled for, honestly. In the NFL, it can't happen. So I think that the guy being brought in, Matthew Wright, is a worthy competitor and someone who's going to be pushing Boswell. I'm glad that they did this roster reconstruction, and I'm really happy to see both kickers come preseason.
Do you think, Chris? Do you think he was hurt during the middle of the year when he was struggling, or do you just think it was just simply a case that it was in his head?
I think a little bit of both. But his brother came out and said that he had a grade 2 something or another injury, and then the other day Boswell said that it wasn't his injury, that he's not blaming his injury basically, right. Which is good to hear. But at the same time, if he was injured, something's got to be said for it. So I can't attest for it. I'm not him. I'm also not in his head, but that's something that he has to be honest with the trainers and such about if he is injured or hurt.
And Ben, there's a lot more to this than just making field goals and extra points. I mean, you got to be able to be consistent. But he was 5 of 10 from 40 to 49 yards last year, and that's an area that you really need kickers to hit. But also, can he still bang the ball through the end zone on kickoffs? Can he directionally put it where he needs to when he's asked to? There's a lot more than just kicking field goals, isn't there here?
Yeah, I don't want to make too much of that. I don't think he was that bad on kickoffs last year. The issue was just the mixed extra points. He missed extra points, man. And the missed field goals, in games like Oakland, Kansas City, games where it would have changed the complexion of the game, and the offense and defense could have attacked the opposition differently as a result of those kicks had they been made, and kicks that he would have made the year before. And that's really what it comes down to, is what it did to I don't want to say the game plan, because that's made well in advance, but what it did to the manner in which the team had to go after the opposition after those missed kicks that really impacted things.
Yeah, so I was writing about this the other day, and I kind of boiled this down to, Matthew Wright he's got to beat Chris Boswell. I mean, he can't just be even with him. He can't be step for step. He's got to prove that he can be consistent from long range. He's got to prove that he consistently knocks down the PATs, and he's got to have Boswell struggle for the Steelers to even remotely think about this. But I think the thing to me that is 100% clear is the Steelers recognize just how serious some of those misses were last year. And as you pointed out, it really did cost them a couple games and the postseason. They're not going to go into 2019 with the same problem. At least they don't want to. And I guess they should be credited for at least being somewhat aggressive with the approach right now. Chris, did you have anything else on Boswell, or can I move on?
Actually, one more thing.
Yeah.
When you're down 2 or down 1 and you're driving on a team with a minute left, you have to be able to personally say, Roethlisberger, you have to basically say, get us to the 30-yard line, get us to this line. Can we depend on this guy to put it through the uprights? Yes or no? And if it's no, it's Roethlisberger, you got to get in the end zone. There's no other way. It's the end zone or nothing at this point, and that's a situation you don't want to be in as a football team. You want to be able to get in a situation where you're saying, hey, 30-yard line, and this game is ours. We got this. Bossy's done this so many times, like in 2017. Clutch. I mean, you got to have that clutch gene, and that's a huge thing for me because you don't want to put all that pressure on the offense, all that pressure on Roethlisberger to get the ball down the field. Especially in a 2-minute drill or something like that. That's a ton of pressure. You might not have all the timeouts, this is that. You don't have AB anymore because he was great getting out of bounds, stopping the clock. So that's just another issue that is with Boswell. Can he clutch the going to the 30-yard line? If not, more pressure to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One more point I just want to make, because you were talking about. And I agree with what Chris just said completely. I don't want to steer away from that. But you talked about Matthew Wright and how he's going to have to beat Boswell out in order to win this, like clearly beat him out.
Yeah.
Wright, and we may have talked about this before, but Wright didn't play for a team that was kicking a lot of long field goals.
Right.
But also wasn't given the opportunity by his coach to kick anything longer than 50 yards last year. I don't think the guy had a lot of faith in him. And the year before that, he was 0 for 1 from 50 plus. And in the last 2 seasons, he only kicked 10 times from 40 to 49, and he was a 70% kicker. So I don't know, man. I'm not putting any bets on this guy to beat Boswell anyway.
Right.
But, he could surprise. We'll see what happens. I'm not that excited about it. Let's put it that way. I want to have a reliable kicker this year, please.
No, absolutely. I'm not excited about this either. I would be much more comfortable with just some kicker coming in just to keep the regular guys' leg fresh. The competition is exciting, but it's not really where I want to be right now. But we'll keep an eye on this, and obviously it'll be a major story come training camp time. I did want to move on to Mason Rudolph, the Steelers, one of their backup quarterbacks. And just a quick note on that, he referred to Ben as Mr. Roethlisberger this week. And it's another one of those things where if you didn't see the interview or if you didn't read the entire article based on his statements, you probably would have taken it as, oh, geez, Ben forces this guy to call him Mr. Roethlisberger. It was a very funny little candid moment that he had in the press conference. It was a total joke. It was great. I thought he did it very well. But again,
I thought he was calling him old. I really thought he was calling him old. I think he was, Ben, but I think it was very tongue in cheek. I thought it was a big tongue in cheek, and I didn't think anything of it at all. I thought it was kind of funny, and I don't know why. I do know why. It's the Pittsburgh sports media, and they need something to write about, but I don't know why so much is being made out of it, and I really don't know why the fans are reading into it. Who cares?
Well, because they don't read and they don't take the time to listen to the actual comments. They just see on Twitter that Mr. Roethlisberger is trending, and they find out, oh my God, Mason Rudolph called him that. Well, there's got to be some story behind it. No, take 2 seconds and read the article, people. I mean, or watch the video clip. God, it just drives me crazy how we do that. And anyway, Rudolph, he's had a year now, Chris, to get his nose in the playbook. He was the clear number 3 behind Josh Dobbs, and the Steelers definitely liked Dobbs as their number 2, jettisoning Landry Jones and made him the number 2 guy. So what are your expectations of Rudolph this year? Should he be the number 2 guy based on his draft position and everything else?
Absolutely. I think if he's not, that draft pick has got to be up there with the Josh Dobbs draft pick of being a what the heck.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm kind of excited for this to happen. I think the Rudolph is going to take it by the horns and really drive it home. I think from what I've seen, what I've read, what I've been told is that he has been in the playbook. He has been asking questions. He's been really working on his craft. So that's what you want to see from a guy in his second year, a guy who's drafted knowing he's going to be a backup, preparing like he's going to be a starter.
Yeah.
And, if something were to happen, knock on wood, to Big Ben, maybe my outlook would be different on the season, but it wouldn't be by a ton. If that's a bold statement.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I'm just gonna say I feel like we would still at least win 7 games with Rudolph behind center. I think 7. I think 7's the ceiling there with Rudolph behind center. But I think that he's got to be number 2. I think that he's got to take advantage of Roethlisberger's days off and run with the ones and do everything he can with the chemistry and everything with that.
Great point about taking advantage of Ben's days off. And we've talked about that a lot on this podcast about how we're not always crazy about Ben taking those Wednesdays off. History has kind of shown when he practices on Wednesdays, he tends to be a little sharper come Sunday. But it does. It gives him an opportunity to work with those ones. Ben, where do you see Rudolph? I guess as far out as at least 2019. Do you expect him to be the number 2 guy?
I would hope so, but if he's not, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Based upon what I've seen, he needed to work on his arm strength, not just get into the playbook. So hopefully he's done that. He's not a guy, at least last year, he wasn't a guy that I was hoping would be out there throwing deep outs to AB 30 yards down the field, where when Ben does it, I'm like, okay, well, he might overthrow him, but it'll probably be there.
Yeah.
It's things like that where you go, well, he can get it there, but he sure puts a lot of air under the ball in the process of doing so. And that's why he slid all the way to the 3rd round. But yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks that Josh Dobbs, who I think is a serviceable number 2, is probably going to slide to 3. Yeah. But, I disagree with Chris. If Ben got hurt, I would be like, okay, well, let's see what they can do. And I mean, I guess it's good from the standpoint that the number 2 will get snaps and we'll see what he can do. But my hopes for the season, my expectations would go right down the tube. That, if he was gone for any significant amount of time, that would be that. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see what happens with him. I really hope he gets the number 2 this year. He was a high round draft choice. He's an accurate player. He's smart. Again, all those things, he's an accurate passer. He's smart. All those things were true when he came in.
Right.
The only question mark really with him was his arm strength, and hopefully, his body's matured. As Jim Everett pointed out to us when he came onto the podcast, his body's going to mature as he gets older, and he's going to get stronger, and hopefully that's translated into better arm strength with the ball. It's not like his mechanics are bad or any of those things, and those are significant problems for other quarterbacks. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When I draft profiled him for the 2018 draft, that was my biggest concern with him. And you pointed out the exact type of throw. It was those deep outs that concerned me. He didn't have to throw a ton of them at Oklahoma State, but when he did, it did not leave me with a whole lot of confidence. It was a very high lofted almost throw that in the NFL, those get returned for pick sixes. So
Yep.
I really hope that is something that he's greatly improved on. And, I do. I would like to see him as the number 2. I'm not going to say it'll be a total failure if he's not, but I will not be very pleased if he's not. Let's just put it that way, and we'll see where it goes from there. Again, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. Right now, you can get the Forever t-shirt from 26shirts.com. It is a very simple, straightforward black shirt with gold font on it, if you will, just Pittsburgh, and it looks like it has a penguin in the corner, so thus the Penguins theme there. And you can get that right now, and $8 from every one of those shirts sold goes to a very worthy charity, and I'll mention the charity coming up here at the end of the show. Guys, some Bud Dupree talk has come out of camp, and Bud is, I believe I saw a number today that he is going to be the 3rd highest paid guy this year, 3rd or 4th. And Chris, what do you need to see from Bud Dupree to be able to say, now there's a guy that earned his money? What does Bud Dupree have? I know that was going to elicit some giggles.
That's a loaded question for Chris, man.
It's a very loaded question.
Oh, boy.
Especially after Chris was sending us messages earlier today comparing Jason Worlds and Bud Dupree. But we won't get into that right now. What do you need to see from this guy? Is it all about a sack total? Is it a QB pressures? Is it a turnover? What do you need to see to be able to say, wow, he earned his money? Let's talk about re-signing this guy.
Shoot. 8.5, maybe 9 sacks. Pressure's got to be up.
Yeah, but they've got to be good pressures. They can't be the pressures like last year where he pushes the guy out of the pocket, the defense loses contain, and it results in a long gain. That's not a pressure.
That's a PFF pressure.
Yeah, exactly, which is stupid.
A meaningful pressure, as in it ends up being a bad throw / turnover. Forced fumble got to have between 2 and 4. If he's getting to the quarterback but not getting to the quarterback, he should be at least getting to the arm of the quarterback and not even having to sack him. I'd like to see 60 tackles from him combined, but he hasn't done that. Got to be better in the run game. People have been saying, he drops into coverage so much. He actually dropped in coverage, I think it was like 14% of the time. I think people need to realize that. Much less than TJ, who's racking up double-digit sacks. I think, with Dupree, it's tough because if he overperforms, he's going to be out of the Steelers' range for money. If he underperforms, he's going to be gone. So I don't see how he stays and does not test open market. But to answer your question, I think 8.5 sacks is a floor for me, especially because I was doing the research with Jason Worlds. Man, he was 8.5 sacks at the end of his career there.
And look how much we complained about him too, and now we're dealing with Dupree.
Ben, go ahead. Worlds also did it 2 years in a row, and especially his I believe it was his 3rd year, not the year they franchised him, but the year before. He only started 11 games, and he actually had respectable stats for only starting 11 games. I had high hopes for him coming back into that last year when they franchised him. And after that, when they let him leave, I was like, okay, well, I agree with what Mark just said. Look at how much we complained about the guy. Yeah. But he was a lot better than Bud. And,
Look at the QB hits total on the two. If you can go back into the conversation. 23 and 22 to end his career, and then Bud 7 and 13. You got to be joking. Don't tell me he gets to the quarterback. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, it really is incredible.
And Bud was complaining today. Well, there were quotes about Bud on Twitter, and I quote tweeted them, and I got some responses. One from Jim Ricalto. Hi, Jim. And Jim is the founder of the Bud Dupree Appreciation Society. He and our friend Craig, they're co-founders. And
yes.
Hi, Craig. And they're big believers in Bud, and they're thinking this is going to be Bud's year. And I basically responded to Jim the way I just responded to you a minute ago. If a pressure results in the defense losing contain of the quarterback, and he either rolls out and slings it down the field for a long gain or runs for a long game, what is the benefit of that pressure? There is none. So you don't get to count it. That's stupid. And that happened to Bud several times. Bud's complaint today was that he was held several times, and on some other plays, he actually had a hand on the quarterback, and the quarterback got away. Well, Bud, that happens to every single edge player in the league. You don't get to count those. Sorry. In fact, TJ had more holds by my count than you did by a long shot that were not called. So knock it off.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with you.
I hope for Bud. I really do, but I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm really sorry, Craig. I know you do. You love the guy, but we don't here.
Chris, you said it perfectly. If he has a big year, then he prices himself out of Pittsburgh. Okay. If he doesn't have a big year, then he's going to be gone anyway. So I think for all intents and purposes, he's looking at his last year in the black and gold. But it's just fascinating to me when you do start talking about him. And I think it was a great move putting up those stats compared to Worlds, because it does provide you with some perspective on just how finicky we can be as fans, that we start ripping on guys and because they're only getting 7 or 8, 9 sacks. And then all of a sudden we have a first round draft pick who's getting 5.5. And it's like, well, I think he's still good. He can still do this. And I mean, it's crazy to me, but, and I would say too, with Bud and Twitter, he needs to get off Twitter. Bud takes that stuff a little too seriously.
That wasn't Bud's Twitter account. It was somebody
I know.
Bud in a conversation. I get where I know what you're referring to, and I agree with you. Bud needs to be a little more careful on Twitter, as do every single player who plays for the Steelers, in my opinion.
Yep.
Aside from apparently Ramon Foster and Cam Hayward, but that's another conversation.
Well, it is, but I don't know that I've seen too many tweets from those two that I would call controversial, inappropriate, anything. I think those two do a really good job on their social media accounts for the most part. But I agree. Not everybody has the level of maturity of those guys, and you got to understand that part of it too. But
if I could say one more thing,
of course,
please.
Talking about Bud Dupree, if week 1 the Steelers rolled out with TJ Watt and Ola Adeniyi over Bud Dupree, I'm telling you that's the better of the two of the three there. The two better are playing week 1 against the Patriots.
At least as a pass rusher, I have to agree with you. I don't know how Ola is going to do as a run defender yet.
Right.
And Bud is at least, he's respectable-ish as a run defender.
Good word.
I also don't really know how Ola's going to do in coverage. We'll see, but I like the potential there from that guy. I agree with where you're going. I like your instincts.
Yeah, I agree too. I think, boy, what a conversation that becomes too. And man, well, we'll just leave it at that because it'll be pretty fun. So let's get to this other issue here with Steelers' 6th round draft pick, I believe. Sutton Smith, the guy that we commonly refer to as the fire hydrant from Northern Illinois. This guy was kind of a pass rush specialist there. He's not real big, super quick, super fast. And Missy Matthews of Steelers.com, she put out a tweet last week with a little video Sutton, doing some stuff in drills and whatnot. And she said linebacker Sutton Smith in action. Here's Sutton Smith in a 3-point stance behind the quarterback, running kind of a wheel route, if you will, and catching a pass. And so it's kind of like, okay, that doesn't look like a linebacker drill to me. So what in the hell's going on? They're clearly experimenting with this kid, and it's not the first time they would have done this with a former defensive player from a MAC school, Rosie Nix, same thing. Chris, what do you think's going on with this guy? What is this just playtime on the south side, or are the Steelers really interested in what he could potentially do as kind of an H-back?
Today he took a pitch doing drills against linebackers, but his senior year, he was the Missouri Large School Player of the Year as a senior running back, had 2,000 plus rushing yards and 32 touchdowns on offense. So there is some backstory to this guy that not many know about. If you don't have to carry four running backs and you want to put Sutton Smith back there in a pinch, why not trade him to do that if he can make the roster with multiple hats? And his number change went to 42, I believe. That is a offense eligible number, I believe. So there is some truth and some kind of backing to this. He's not going to play offense. I mean, you honestly, 2,000 yards rushing and 32 touchdowns is nothing to.
Nothing.
I mean, it's high school. It's nothing to sneeze at, though.
Right.
And he's quick. We know he's quick. But if you don't have to carry four running backs and a guy like that can run in a pinch, I don't see the harm in that.
Yeah. Ben, where are you on this? Is this just them having some fun, giving somebody things to talk about, or is there something to it?
They don't do things just to give people something to talk about.
I would hope not.
They're playing around with it, seeing what he can do. And I'm not going to speculate because he hasn't played running back in a long, long time. But, clearly they see something there that they want to see if they can make work. I don't see Rosie Nix getting cut because of it or anything along those lines. No. But if it gives them one more puzzle piece to throw out there, to throw something out there that might not be expected, then you roll with it. I think, the expectation is that Smith will be active on game days as a special teamer anyway. So if they can find one more way where he can fit, as a part of the regular units, then he can contribute more and it increases his value. So, it's a positive if it works out.
Oh, yeah. One thought I had with him, could you guys, and I'll throw this to Chris, can you see him as the up back, the main guy in punt formation?
Why not? He's quick. He's strong. He's stout. I believe that he can. I don't know if he can block very well. But,
that's the question.
That's the question.
Block.
But he's got the body build for it. He's got the tenacity for it. He's got the defensive mindset for it. Robert Golden did it.
He's definitely got the build for it. It's just I'd like to see him in backs on backers a couple times before I say, oh yeah, this guy, he'd definitely be a good up back.
Good point.
Because you want to see if he can that one time that somebody jumps the gap and weighs 275 pounds, can he stop the guy?
Well, and the reason I thought of this is because, none of us have much positive to say about Danny Smith, but one thing he does do is he gets a little creative on those fake punts, and a lot of times they do involve that up back guy, and when you're dealing with a guy as quick as he is and as strong as he is, what the heck? Maybe he's a guy that you use in that position, so, he very well could be just this jack of all trades type.
Mark, can I ask you, did you come up with that all by yourself, or did you read? I'm not asking that as anything other than, did you really come up with that by yourself, or did you read that somewhere?
The idea of him playing up back?
Yes.
No, I thought of that myself. I mean,
okay. So if that gets on the news or in any news articles tomorrow or the day after, we're going to know exactly where it came from. Just curious.
Well, I'll probably put it in quick hitters tomorrow, so it'll be my own fault. But no, I just. And I think we all do this, guys. I think what we do is we look at players and you see what the body type is, and you see what their past is. Like, Chris, you mentioned he's got an unbelievable history as a high school running back, and I'm sure the Steelers saw that and had a little bit of interest in it. And again, I'm not trying to say that there's an equivalent there between what you do in high school and what you do in the NFL. There's no comparison. I'm just saying they look at that and they say, okay, this is what this guy has in the skill set. You throw that in with what his frame is, what his mentality is, and he seems like the perfect guy to be in that position. So, and Ben brought up the point that, yeah, he's probably going to be an active guy on game day because of special teams. So, hey, I'm using this guy as often as I can, and wherever I can on the field. So it just seemed like a natural fit to me. So that's my one good thought for the 2019 season. It'll probably stop right there. So, if you see something out there about that, it's all me.
Yeah, I'll take all the credit and none of the blame.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, geez, oh man, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh, and right now, as you know, $8 from every shirt goes to a real special cause in the Pittsburgh area, and right now, the charitable cause is the family of Dan Homich. Dan was 34 years old and died recently, and has left behind a wife and 3 young kids. And there is a GoFundMe page set up, and that's what Dell and the guys at 26 have set up for this 2-week period of selling this Pittsburgh Forever shirt. And it's really kind of a tragic story if you're in the Pittsburgh area and know anything about it. But just, consider it. And again, you're going to get an awesome shirt, a comfortable shirt, and you're going to be doing something really, really good at the same time. So I do, guys, also have to mention this broke later today that the Steelers now finally have all their draft picks signed. Justin Lane, the 3rd-round cornerback from Michigan State, who many people think, could possibly see some time this year. He finally signed his deal. Ben, have you seen any of the particulars about that?
No, and I've been trying to find them. I don't have any information on it at all.
Yeah,
it's a 4-year deal, and it's slotted. So, I'm guessing it's about $3.7 million total for 4 years. But it's a guess. I mean, that's just based upon the fact that he's the 83rd pick, and the guy made this much last year, and then you put a percentage on top of that, and it falls about here. So,
right.
Anyway, I'm still baffled as to why it took so long to get that deal signed, but the guys around him still are unsigned as well. The guys that were drafted right around him in the same round.
Yeah, so clearly there must have been something language related or something that they must not have liked.
I don't know, or a lot of times it's just a waiting game. It's like, let's wait and see what happens if one of these guys signs. Maybe you can get a better deal or more money up front, something, but it's not. That's not the case. I mean, with deals with guys that were drafted that late, that typically is not the deal. So. It probably was just an agent trying to see if he could leverage a little more cash for his client or a little more money up front loading a little bit more because someone just in front of them got a slightly enhanced deal as well. That's the only thing I can speculate about. Only possibility. Other than that, those deals are slotted, man. It is what it is. You get what you get.
And isn't it fascinating that, and especially for those of the younger audience that are listening, there was a time when, draft picks in the NFL, there was no slotting, there was no rookie wage scale. And a lot of times these picks would hold out well into training camp. And, oh, God, it was just a nightmare. But
remember Aaron Smith held out.
Yeah,
almost
Aaron
all the
Smith.
way. Yeah, he showed up right before the last preseason game, and that was because Bill Cowher basically said, "Look, you better report, or you're not going to make the team."
Yeah, Yeah, no, I totally forgot about him. He's one that you do kind of forget because you spend so much time thinking about the upper level draft guys.
He was a 4th round pick, and he felt like
Yep.
he should have been drafted a lot earlier and wanted more money. And the Steelers were like, "Dude, you're a 4th round pick. Sorry, sign this deal or forget it."
Oh man. One final thing here, guys, before we wrap things up on the show. James Conner this week said that he feels like he hasn't earned anything, and he knows that people are calling him the Steelers' #1 running back and everything else. And is that just James Conner, a real humble guy, or is there something to what he's saying about that?
That's James Conner. That's his personality. He feels like nothing's giving, everything is earned. He's going to go out there every day, prepare like he's a starter. He's going to give it his all every single day. He doesn't want anyone to think that he's going to come into training camp or anything, OTAs and lollygag around just because he's a starter. He doesn't believe that. He believes that he has to earn that right. Just because he had a great season last year doesn't mean it's going to roll over to this year in his mind. So it's awesome to hear from his perspective.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that's the kind of guy he is. I think he knows he's got some unfinished business too. He had a few issues with fumbles last year, and the ability to stay healthy. So I think he's probably playing this the right way. Ben,
the biggest issue was the haircut.
Well, yeah, we definitely need to work on that haircut. Holy crap! And who am I to talk? But,
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants to cut his hair like that and he can perform at a high level like he did last year,
exactly.
Fine, dude. Grow it out like that. In fact, etch in some letters on the side. Whatever.
We're all just jealous. Us three in the podcast are just jealous, honestly.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it's a dumb haircut. But again, the results on the field speak for themselves. So fine.
Yes, yeah. If you want to look like Bozo the Clown, go ahead. As long as you're producing, I don't care. You're exactly right. And before we cut things off for this episode, we do have our own website store now. It's through some friends at designtree.com, and that is actually dsgntree.com and /Steel City Blitz. And there's about 8 different shirts up there right now. You can order them, kind of customize them the way you want with our logo, different colors. And there's a couple of original, one about Devin Bush. There's one up there related to the Prince of Pittsburgh, Mr. Juju Smith-Schuster. And we got a lot more coming. We're going to put up some podcast logo themed t-shirts as well. So if you're a big fan of the podcast, and right now I think you can get $5 off your first order there too. So check that out in Quick Hitters. I usually put that in there and stuff there as well. Chris, any final thoughts as we wrap the show up?
Yep, got a Justin Lane article coming out tomorrow.
Excellent.
Hyping him up. Make sure you check that out.
Okay, Justin Lane article. And Ben, any final thoughts?
Yeah, quick shout out to Mr. Dominic Totola, who listens to the podcast every time it's recorded, but refuses to take part with any interaction with us on Twitter anymore because he's kind of a jackass. Hi, Dom.
I'm just glad that I already know.
Yeah, I'm just glad Dom listens. I think he's the only one that does. But no, I'm kidding. We have a wonderful audience, and please continue to check it out at iTunes, Spreaker.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, and everything else. And to the guy that commented on YouTube about me and Mark Barron, number 26, and that he'd had it at Tampa Bay and the Rams, I stand corrected. It was a great point. I shouldn't have put so much emphasis on it. Who the hell cares? Just go play football and make tackles. But thank you for commenting. Anyway, for Chris and for Ben, this is Steel Dad signing off on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And hey, go Steelers!